Welcome back to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. I'm Aaron Richmond. Tonight, like all other episodes, is of course copywritten by me, Aaron Richmond, and Aaron's Opinion. Thank you. You can watch us right here on YouTube, where so many of you do, along with listening on iTunes or wherever you get a podcast. Don't forget 1240 681 9869. Aaron's Opinion 6 at gmail.com. Comment below, follow on Facebook, Twitter, even consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. I would appreciate the support. Tonight, we are joined by Sprint Ravers. He joins us from the Millennial View podcast. Welcome to Aaron's Opinion. So, in case a listener is wondering, so what is the Millennial View podcast? How did you get into that?
Well, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was definitely a pleasure. The Millennial View podcast, it started in October. Basically, it's a podcast that covers a variety of topics. It could be anything, such as culture, lifestyle, entertainment, music, news, international, local, whatever. Um, yeah, it's something that I've been wanting to do ever since I graduated from the University of Albany. I graduated in 2018 with a bachelor's in communication and English. Currently, I'm a special ed teacher at a high school.
Ah,
Yes, I teach a work-based learning program. It's a course on how to be a successful employee in the work environment and acquiring a career. And right now, I'm in my current second season of the Millennial View podcast, by the way, which is streaming on YouTube and other listening platforms such as Spotify, Apple. So if you guys want to check that out, it's the Millennial View podcast on YouTube and other streaming platforms.
cool. Well, guys, click the link in the description for more information. Well, as someone who's blind and as a successful blind person, I really appreciate the fact that you're a special education teacher. That is so valuable and so important. So thank you. I mean, it really has nothing to do with the podcast, but how did you get into the special ed field?
Okay, so I've been working with children for several amount of years. So actually, one of my dad's friends, she's an higher up at the school, so it was kind of like a connect thing. And yeah, it actually was. It's my second year there, and it's my first 2 years working with special ed students. I figured I knew it would be different because I'm used to working with general education kids. Um, I wasn't really like nervous. I just knew I was gonna walk into something that I'm not familiar with. But it's pretty good working there.
Okay, good. And you say you basically teach a course that helps the students to be able to enter the workplace. What are some of the activities, and what are some of the things you teach them, and what are all of the activities that you help them that you teach them? Yeah.
Okay, so my first year there, we each student was assigned to a job site. So my group was assigned to, well, I had to do it twice a week. So I had to do it for two homerooms. So I had two groups. One group would go to Old Navy on Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, uh, a group would go to Barnes and Noble. So basically they would do like floor work, whether it's rearranging shoes, scanning books in the stock room, the little stuff, not, nothing crazy like ringing up
But
customers or
but
anything like
the
that.
but still important. But the point is that that's a job that needs to be done, and that's still important and valuable to those
Absolutely.
companies.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. Right. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was the first year, but due to the lockdown that occurred in March, that was cut short early. So now we're currently we're just learning interview etiquette, and we're bringing in special guests to practice those interview skills.
That's really good. Wow, I love that. Keep up. For one, God bless you for that, and keep up your great work. You will be that you say thank you for doing the right thing. Now back to the podcasting. All right, so I'll tell you, guys, Sprint does not know me, and I really do not know Sprint apart from the name of the podcast. So I'll tell you that I got into podcasting a couple years ago, really, because I was listening to podcasts for the blind audience. There are several that are just that podcasts for a blind audience or people with disabilities. And I felt that those podcasts simply were really not approachable in the sense of guests just couldn't come up to the podcast and introduce themselves and have a conversation. And I love to complain. I love to talk to people and I love to educate people. So I felt, well, since I love complaining, educating, and talking, why don't I talk to myself? And that became a podcast. And that's how I started to gain listeners. And then over time, I got into the Zoom and then the YouTube and then kind of built it upwards from there to where it is now. So are you the creator of the Millennial View podcast, or are you simply one of the people who puts it together? What was your you know inspiration for setting that up?
Okay,
Hmm.
so so as I stated before, I graduated with a bachelor's in communication. So I like discovered that I actually enjoy public speaking, and that's not a strength that everyone has because a lot of people tend to be nervous when they're like presenting, projects or sharing their points of view in front of a big audience. Like I realized that, oh, I could do this, you know. So about 2 years ago, I actually hosted a competition and it was my first, time hosting an event. And it was quite a big audience. And you know, I was prepared for it, but I was supposed to, work with someone for it, but they arrived late, so I kind of like had to wing everything. I didn't choke or anything. Like it still went well, even though the co-host arrived late. Like I was still able to, provide excitement throughout the entire show. And it's like after that, I really like realized like I need to get into stuff like this more. I need to start, hosting things. I need to like start a podcast right away, you know. But funny thing is that I actually started with someone else when this podcast began back in October. I started with someone else, but they kind of dropped the ball. But I picked up the ball and I just kept walking with it. So now, I'm enjoying, doing the podcast by myself. But I'm bringing guests like, for certain topics and even interviews as well. So, it's still fun.
Sure, sure, excellent. And what event did you have the opportunity of hosting? What was that show?
So it was the dance hall competition in 2019. It was at the University of Albany, which I attended, as I stated before. Um, yeah, so it's basically a competition where teams get together and they compete for the grand prize. Um, I can't remember what the grand prize really was, but yeah, so they compete, and then usually at the end, dancehall artists perform. So those of you that are not familiar with dancehall is the music that is played in Jamaica.
Oh, excellent. And if you do not mind me asking, are you originally from Jamaica?
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's so good, so cool. So what part of Jamaica did you grow up in?
Montego Bay.
Montego Bay. Cool, cool. I've never been down there to Jamaica, but once we complete this episode, I'm going to add you to my private group on WhatsApp where you'll meet all of the guests who have been on Aaron's Opinion so far over the past year or so, and two of them, actually, two of them are Jamaicans, and
Okay,
both of them are podcasters, and one of them has a radio show in Jamaica on an internet station. So
okay,
good, so good. Yeah. Closest thing, I mean, the closest I was to Jamaica, which isn't really that close, was I have been to St. Lucia, as a matter of fact. I did some volunteering work there, so I kind of know a little bit about the life, the life in that region of the world. It's a wonderful life. It's a very nice place.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Do you before the pandemic, did you go back to Jamaica, once a year?
No, I did not. It's actually been quite some time since I had been back there.
I see. I see. Cool, cool. Do you still like follow the news and follow the headlines from Jamaica?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that's
I don't
cool.
I don't miss 1 second of what goes on there.
Yeah, yeah, it seems, yeah. And anyway, well that is good. Okay. So on the millennial view, what are some what have been some interesting episodes that you have recorded, and what have been some interesting topics that you've already covered along with, so it's called the millennial view. So what is your view on society?
So, okay, I recorded one episode um on I think it's episode 9 in the first season. I brought my cousins on there. It's called A Message to Black America. Um, Basically, this guy named I can't remember his name now. I think it's Tariq Nashad. Yes, Tariq Nashad. He's a director of some film um that talks about the Haitian Revolution. So he was on Instagram Live with my cousin, and they were having an argument because he didn't say some very nice things about Jamaicans. He made it feel like that Black Americans are, more superior than Jamaicans, and they've done so much for the Black community that they made it feel like, oh, Jamaicans haven't done anything. So my thing is like, I didn't appreciate the fact that he was trying to separate Black Americans from Jamaicans because the common denominator between us is that we're all Black. You understand? So yeah, I we spoke about that, and we were just trying to spread the message that listen, there's no need to discriminate just because we come from different cultures or different nationalities. There's no need for that. At the same time, we're all Black, and you know we still face the same struggles that Black Americans face every day. For example, the police brutality, what happened to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, we still can face that because of the color of our skin. You understand? So
Yes, yes, I do.
so like covering that, I feel like it was very necessary to spread that message to not even just millennials, but Gen Z, baby boomers, you name it. All of this is basically just coming from a millennial's perspective.
Okay, okay. Well, I completely agree with you. Um, and I'm Polish. My heritage comes from Poland, and I also have I will tell you point blank that I have a zero tolerance policy for disrespectful guests or
Hmm.
discrimination or ignorance. And
Absolutely.
I will tell you two things: that there have been a couple of guests who've come to this show in the past, in the far past, to whom I perhaps maybe didn't publish the episode, or maybe I don't talk to them anymore because they are not respectful people. So guys,
Hmm.
this is the wisdom behind this. Never tolerate someone who's an ignoramus. Please don't. Please don't. But I will also tell you at the same time, in the art of podcasting, okay, you're always every once in a while you're going to get a character on your show. It's just part of the art of podcasting. Eventually, you're going to get a guest who is ignorant on purpose or is ignorant because they truly are, and there's
Hmm.
absolutely nothing to be done about it. But I agree with you. Not only is there no need to discriminate, to be discriminatory, but it just shouldn't be a behavior that is acceptable. And I don't know why I really don't know why. Actually, that's why I'm asking the question. I don't know why so many people are willing to behave like that, because it makes the person doing the discriminating, it just kind of makes them look uneducated, and it makes them seem less credible and less believable. So I don't
And
know. I don't know, because I thought people wanted to be believed. Well, if you want to be believed, stop being ignorant and start being respectful. And so know that Aaron's opinion is the most respectful and the most open podcast on iTunes. So so just know that you have my support on that, and I could not agree with you more, and I am quite frankly fed up with ignoramuses myself.
yeah, absolutely. And
even in my
really and
even in
truly,
my even in my even in my community of my people, we still have ignoramuses on my side. Trust me, we got them, and every culture has them. Trust me.
right, every culture has its good apples and its bad apples. And you know, some of those bad apples, they practice these behaviors for attention.
Yes, they
To be
definitely
honest,
do.
that's just what they do. They like they really don't know what they're talking about. They're just all doing it for the attention and the image. That's it.
It's these. Guys, haven't I been saying this? Have you been listening to Aaron's opinion? This is exactly what I've been teaching people. A lot of times, people act up simply because they just want the attention. Some people are just thrive on attention. Okay, I don't thrive on attention. I thrive on knowledge. I thrive on educating people. I thrive on helping other podcasters, right? But I don't want attention. Actually, it's the last thing I want. So yeah, I don't know why people are like that, but that's people, I guess. Yeah, and the problem is it only takes one bad apple, to destroy the whole orchard, orchard, I guess, of knowledge that we have. So yeah, that's frustrating, but that will also never end. There's always another ignoramus that is born every day, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is to know when to ignore, when to do a lot of constructive ignoring, and I've had to do it for dealing with society, my disability, my situation, my views on the world. Sometimes I just have to ignore people.
Right.
you know. So, well, that's interesting. So, okay, what have been some other topics, some other serious topics that you've gotten into? Hmm.
So another one, and I was actually talking to a friend about this today because she was checking out one of my episodes. The episode is called Words Matter. I feel like people do not realize that words can have power. We may say, okay, actions speak louder than words, but depends on what's said, and everything is said for a reason. You can't just say something and not mean it because it's like what was the purpose of saying it? You understand? So the example
Yes.
I used was oh, you've been dating someone and then you tell them I love you, but then you realize, oh, you made a mistake that you should have never said that. No, something caused you to say it. Something sparked in you to say that. So it's like you can't just say something and then just not mean it. Like there's literally like no purpose in saying, something that's, strong, if you didn't mean it. So, that's why I try to explain to people like words definitely matter. Like words definitely play a part.
Right, they do. They do. Which is why I think that podcasting is such an effective way, such an effective art form for our people, our generation, because we're able to connect with an audience only based on what we say. So
Hmm.
I think it does matter what we say. And some people of course watch the show because they like my YouTube channel, they like the way I look, they want to see my face, how I talk. And that's fine. But I do think overall, as far as content creation and art goes, I think words do matter. Now, in life and other ways, well, sometimes actions can speak louder than words, but we still need to listen. And I think that's it's a very extremely good point. I,
Right.
I
And when some of us fall down, sometimes we need to hear those words so that we could get right back on our feet and just keep moving.
right.
You know, it wouldn't hurt to, hear some encouraging words because those encouraging words can give us some extra push.
Mhm. And okay, so how do you structure your podcast? Do you do like interviews like this? Do you do episodes where you just talk, just do a solo where you just talk about certain things that are going on, or how do you structure it?
So basically, throughout majority of the first season, it's just me being solo, except for the Message to Black America episode, and I also did a top five dancehall songs of 2020 episode for fun with my cousins. Um, but the majority of episode one is me being solo. Um, Depending on the topic, I would bring a guest, but I wouldn't say I really like interview them. Like we would just discuss it and then maybe we would exchange questions to each other. However, my latest upload was my first official interview with someone that actually had went viral on social media. We spoke about dancehall and him growing up in Connecticut, and he's actually Greek, so he's not really Jamaican, but he got into the dancehall culture. So
Hmm.
I took the time out to learn about how he got into the culture and what life was like growing up in Connecticut around other Jamaicans that live there, that live in Connecticut.
Huh. Huh. Yeah. Well, I didn't necessarily. I was not. I mean, I'm not surprised that there's a Jamaican community in Connecticut. I know there's a Jamaican, many Jamaicans in New York. I know that, but I wasn't
Yes,
so.
definitely.
Yes, it's very well known that there's a community of Jamaicans in New York and probably all over the country. I didn't know there was a community in Connecticut though. Hmm.
Yeah. I would say Northeast, you're definitely gonna have Jamaican communities, but New York really has like New York is one of the states that has a Jamaican dominance in the
I,
state.
I see, I see. And so why is that, by the way? Why have so many Jamaicans made New York their home over the centuries?
So basically, when they migrate, they either go to Florida because Florida is pretty much like the closest, and Florida has the good weather. And I think they do it because it's more opportunity in New York. It's more like job opportunities that you can, acquire. And I guess like New York is a well-known place in the world, you could say. Yeah, that's pretty, but I would say more of the job opportunities acquired, and that's like the reason why people from Jamaica come up.
Well, good, great. Yeah. So, and how? I'm just curious. How did this Greek guy become friends with these Jamaicans and then get into the dance hall culture, as you've said?
Okay, so basically he's had a friend that he went to high school with, and he was Jamaican, and they became good friends. It got to the point where, you know, he would go to his house and he met the family, and the family would start speaking patois. Patois is what we speak in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in my opinion, patois is something that's not taught. Patois is something that's picked up. Um, you know, it's it's impossible to like teach patois. 'Cause patois is not really like a foreign language. It's broken up English, you know. So because foreign languages are basically taught like Spanish, French, Italian, German. Those are taught. But patois, no, I feel patois is something that's picked up. So he's like been around them so much, he started to pick it up, and then he started listening. Yeah, and then he started
That's
listening
funny.
to the
That's
new.
cool. Yeah, he picked it up probably because it sounded cool. I know what you're talking about. So no, as a French speaker, French is my second language. Do not let anyone tell you that your patois is not a language. It definitely is. It's definitely a separate language from English. Because if you start speaking, patois really quickly, I probably could not understand you. And you definitely have some Jamaican expressions and Jamaican words that American people just wouldn't understand you at all. So there's definitely some words from Jamaica that are not said in the States at all. So no, you definitely have your own language. It is. Hmm.
Yeah, so it's funny because in majority of my episodes, I'm like always speaking Patu because that's never gonna go anywhere. That's basically my true identity. However, I still like to mix it in with, English because I know I have American viewers as well. So, I don't think it would be like fair to like speak strictly Patu all the time. So I like to like balance it between both of those.
That's cool. That's cool. That is so good. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you broadcast in your native language of patois. That's really that impresses me. That's so good. Thank you for
Yeah,
doing that because it helps to maintain that language and to make sure that people keep hearing it and keep remembering Jamaica for that beautiful way that you speak. Yeah. Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah, I
It's all
noticed when
about I'm all about representation. That's all that it is. I'm all about representation.
well, you should when you come over to my WhatsApp group, man, you should talk some of that patois in the voice messages to the other Jamaican. Hey, you should one of those people. There's some characters and they would get a kick out of that. Try to see.
Yeah.
You should try that to see if I can understand and see how much you can get away with, right?
I mean,
Um,
you might pick it up yourself.
Sometimes I don't. I mean, honestly, I just love hearing Jamaicans. I just love hearing that Jamaican language. Can you give me some sentences, some really beautiful sentences that really illustrate the grace and beauty of that language? Can you talk a little bit in it?
All right. So, what would I say? All right. So basically, I'm gonna introduce myself. Yeah, me, I say people they don't know, so I sprint Ravers, they are CMA, and you are now tuned into the Millennial View.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. So I understood it. You said what your name was. You said my name is a Sprint, Ravers, and then you said you're tuned into the Millennial View. So like I understood you, but like you like as you know how French, when people hear French is, they always say it's such a beautiful language. Like
Hmm.
with that Jamaican way that you're able to speak it, it's so like you got that perfect rhythm and that nice flavor in the back of it. Like
Yeah,
that's so nice to hear. It's something so positive and interesting about that whole personality. You really plug in the personality. Yeah, yeah. It's very soothing, very interesting way of talking. Definitely, but it's still it's still kind of a separate language, right? Because if you were going to like take notes and you were going to literally write down what you just said, you would spell the words differently, right?
yeah, so it'll be spelled
Then it's
different.
it's a separate language. Then it's a separate
Hmm.
language for sure. If you're completely altering the spelling of words or spelling certain things or using different words, then then it's your own language. Well, that's so. How many other Jamaican podcasters have you contacted?
Well, I haven't really like contacted any. However, one of the reasons, well, one of the well-known Jamaican podcasters that I know actually, they were another form of inspiration that um pushed me to start the podcast. It's a podcast called Let's Be Honest podcast. It's hosted by Jay Frey and Chevy. Um, they definitely, you know, inspired me to start my own podcast. I mean, I follow them actually on Instagram, and I think they follow me back, and they also view my stories as well. But we haven't like got in contact or anything like that.
What are you so afraid of? You should reach out to them. Reach out to their show and invite them on. As a
It's
podcast.
funny. You're absolutely right because, so far, like you're like the second, content creator that I've collaborated with ever since this year started. And I'm also collaborating with another content creator that I went to middle school with. So hey, this is the year for me to start getting my stuff out there, building my brand, letting the people know who I am.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, my advice is you just have to jump in the deep end. You just have to start reaching out to people. Guys, when I reach out to podcasters, I reach out to a lot of them. Um, and some get back to me and some don't, so it's like you never know who's going to get back to you, and then you never know what a great episode you have the potential of recording. The way I see it, it's always a win-win when I reach out to someone, because I'm able to help, I'm able to connect them to my community and just help them to grow their channel or help them to spread their message. So that's why I reached out to you, because I saw what you were doing on Facebook. You boosted a post. I mean,
Hmm.
I've never listened to what you do, but in all honesty, I just wanted to keep producing content that other people will like, and someone who's boosting posts and producing their own content, that for me, that's someone who I should listen to and should be supportive of. So that's, in case you're wondering, hey, why, that's why. But that's funny though. That's interesting. So are there, like, in Jamaica, do you ever, I mean, I guess you kind of don't, but do you ever, like, talk to, like, any of the radio stations? Because there's a lot of, I mean, I can tell you from my own WhatsApp group, um, from what I know from the other Jamaicans that I know in the group, there's a lot of radio stations in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Have you talked to them?
Well, I haven't spoke to anyone in that area. However, you have those kind of radio stations in New York City.
Hmm.
So, my friend actually, I think she's an intern at 93.5. I haven't spoke to her in months, but I'm pretty sure she's aware that, I have a podcast and hey, maybe, can
If you,
put
if
in a
you know,
word.
but if you know, but let's clarify here. So if you never spoke to her, how can you be so sure that she's aware of you?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, you never know, like people that you haven't spoke to, people that you haven't spoke to in months. Sometimes they'll people that you haven't spoke to in months, or people that maybe have cut you off, they could be watching you still.
Well, that's okay. So you're saying you might, okay. So maybe you can also say that maybe you feel like you have a silent listener who happens to be working at this radio station, right?
Probably have a lot of silent listeners out there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
silent viewers. So like for example, let's say you and a friend guys had a fallout, right? And
Oh yeah.
you notice that they're watching your stuff on IG or YouTube, or they're still liking your content on Facebook, and you guys no contact whatsoever, so you're always gonna have silent viewers and silent listeners. But
I. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I haven't like really I haven't started getting in contact with any of any radio stations yet, but that's definitely coming.
Yeah. Oh, good. It never hurts to reach out. And I'll tell you, I found in the art of podcasting, either people say yes, they want to come on the show, or they just don't answer. But you don't have to be all nervous. If the person doesn't want to come on there, they aren't going to send you some rude message,
Yeah,
or
right, exactly.
or you know what? Or if they do, you don't want them on the show. So
Right.
there you go. Well, cool, man. Okay. Well, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, it's back to the language thing. I teach English as a second language. I don't tell people who I work for, but I work online. It's a bit of a long story. Anyway, I love talking about languages. And when I was volunteering in St. Lucia many years ago now, because French is my second language, I was able to understand the language of St. Lucia, their Creole that they speak down there. But I could understand the verbs, but then they came up with other nouns. So it was funny. I knew what actions they were going to take. I just didn't know with what they were going to take them with. So it can be really cool when you hear the influences. But yeah, in the Caribbean, there's a lot of languages actually.
Right.
Yeah, like all sorts of ancient languages that are probably not being spoken. So that's why, guys, if you're a podcaster out there, say, I wonder. Oh, I'm just gonna take a shot in the dark here. The island nation of Aruba. On that island, actually, the first nation's language of that island is actually a language called Papa Numento. I wonder if there's ever been a podcast, if there's a podcaster out there who records in Papa Numento.
Yeah, I never even been to Aruba a day in my life, but I mean, it wouldn't hurt to like see if there's a podcast that speaks in that language too.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are podcasts from all over the world, but I've found that the majority of podcasters podcast usually in English, but it does depend on the country. I don't know. I'm sure that
Right.
there is on some of those other islands some podcasters that only podcast in those ancient languages. It would be hard to find,
Absolutely.
but I'm sure they do it. I don't know. Just so if you're from Aruba and you speak Papua New Mento, I'd love to hear from you. I'd also
Hmm.
love to hear from the world too. But anyway, that's all fascinating. So, what are some hobbies that you do when you aren't teaching or recording content?
Absolutely. So I'm a dancer. I dance the dance hall. I've been dancing since I was 13 years old. Um, I'm also a weightlifter. I'm very into fitness.
Good.
Fitness is definitely key. I ran track and I played soccer as a kid and even in college as well, high school. Um, I like to roller skate on my free time because I feel
Hmm.
like roller skating is one of the most fun things to do out there. Even if I can't do the tricks that you see the people do in the south, they skate backwards and then they spin around, do all these tricks. Like I always found that fascinating. Um, but yeah, I like to play sports as well. Even though I was dedicated to soccer and track, I like to play a little basketball. A little bit of bowling. Um, I like to take pictures as well. As a kid, I was never really photogenic. I always hated the camera because I just didn't want to take pictures. But now, like I've learned that self love is important. That I always want the camera on me now. So yeah, I really do love to take pictures. And yeah.
Well, that's excellent. You mentioned basketball. That kind of reminds me of NBA. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of foreigners who play in the NBA. Are there any Jamaicans who are playing in the NBA?
Maybe they have Jamaican parents, but mm, Jamaican born. I don't think so.
Huh. I mean, I wouldn't know
I
because
mean,
I
not
was.
that I know of, because I'm not too deep into NBA. I know a
Hmm.
little bit of NBA knowledge, but as far as I know, like I haven't heard of any Jamaican born NBA players.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, it's very interesting. That whole notion. Well, good. Yeah, I have a Segway electric scooter that I take out around my neighborhood when it's not snowing. It's snowing here right now, which
Hmm.
means it's probably snowing there. But
Yeah.
in summer when there's more light and I can be outdoors more, I love getting out and getting on the scooter and just being outside and getting some fresh air. It's really refreshing. So that's really important to be outside when you can, because so much time in the states it's too cold um, for a lot of the year actually. Well, that is all really good.
Hmm.
So what are some questions that you have for me? You know,
Um.
sure,
So yeah, you're blind.
right.
Um. Have you ever felt like rejected by others that don't have the same condition as you? Like, did you ever feel like you were judged
Man,
by?
Man, that was a meg. You know what? I love the work that you're doing as a teacher. You are an amazing special education teacher, because that was a perfect question. I would just give that question 100% on an exam. I really would.
Hmm.
Magnificent. Absolutely, yes. There is discrimination and prejudice all over the blindness community. I have glaucoma. And then people have all these other diseases and other things wrong with their eyes. And no, my condition's worse. No, yours is worse. No, yours is worse. No, I won't be friends with you because you didn't go to the right school that I went to. And there's
Mm-hmm.
it's a brilliant question. Thank you for asking me that. That was really
Absolutely.
good. God, that was great. Um, there absolutely, and I've never thought of it too much. There absolutely is. And it's a huge problem because it's completely disabling a lot of blind people all over the world from being able to make meaningful relationships and meaningful friendships with people. And we've been having a lot of struggles lately in the blindness community, like all of us are, dealing with the stress, of the pandemic and being at home and being stuck and, doing that. So I think if there's ever a time to put aside our differences from wherever they come from, wherever they stem, now might be a great time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that time is now because we should be using this time to be getting over some of the problems that I've been talking to you guys about in society that I've been seeing. We talk a lot about the different problems that we've been seeing in society, and that was thank you for asking. I loved that. That was a really thoughtful question. Yeah. Um. So
No, absolutely.
have you ever met? Well, okay. So well, I mean, you work with students with disabilities, but are any of them blind?
No.
Oh, okay. Just
You're
wondered.
actually the first. You're actually the first blind person I've encountered. So this is definitely when you told me that, like I was, I was intrigued, because being that, I
All
mean,
right. All right.
being that I work in, especially at a high school, and these children, they have different disabilities, learning, physical,
Mm-hmm.
emotional, social, you name it. But when you told me that, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. But it's something that I can relate to because I work with children with similar disabilities. So I see
Oh.
it. Like I see it every day. Like I've seen like some of these students get treated differently because they don't know the year that slavery was abolished, or they don't know the slope intercept form, or some of them can't even read. I've seen it. I've seen the judgment flowing.
Yeah.
I would tell my students that, listen, believe it or not, we are all human, and we are all here to be the best we can be, no matter what condition we are in. We are here for a purpose. You get me? So
Oh yeah.
I, I make sure I give them that reassurance, every now and then, because again, that traces back to my episode. These words matter. These words need to be said to everybody, that way they can understand.
You are so right, and I am so glad. Every guest, I don't know what it is. I don't know how I managed to do it, guys. Every episode, I'm happier and happier when I record every single episode because every guest just keeps getting better. And I
Hmm.
am really glad that we're podcast buddies, podcast friends, however you want to look at it.
Absolutely.
I am really glad that you're going to be added in my group, and my group is going to get a real kick out of you. They're real, man. Oh man, you better have your A game in that WhatsApp group because there's going to be some questions and some comments and some complaints. But
Oh
let
no,
me.
hey, that's fine. I could take it. I could take the heat.
Oh, well. I'll give it. Not to worry though. It is, as I say, just like Aaron's opinion is the most open and kindest podcast on iTunes. So is my WhatsApp
Hmm.
group for the guests. So and I own it. I'm the administrator. So
Hmm.
well, um, if you could one more question before we really get down to the end of everything that I want to say and tell you on this episode. But if you could interview only one guest and not me, if you could interview
Hmm.
only one guest in the world on your podcast, who would you interview and why?
That is an excellent question. If I can interview one guest, It would probably have to be Usain Bolt.
I would. You know what? You know what? I was. I would. When you mentioned the track, I thought Usain Bolt. That's the name that popped into my head. Well,
Yeah.
why don't you do why don't you take some of this motivation that you have now, some of this strength from recording with me? Why don't you take it over to the marketing, the public page for Usain Bolt, maybe his profile, I don't know, his public page or something,
Oh
and
no, yeah, absolutely. Like me, like I would definitely interview Usain Bolt. Why? Because the success that he's done over the years, putting our country on the map. You
hmm
know, we receive it's like receiving so much love. It's overwhelming. You know, um, I mean, and even myself, like at one point, I wanted to go to the Olympics at one point, but I came down with a quad injury, and my senior year was cut short. Like my season was cut short, so I couldn't really compete. And they said if I aggravated more, then it could really like end like my career or something. So I had to cut my career short. So you know and then he's retired now, so I will want to know like what life is like, what his life was like, and how he actually handled, how did he feel about retiring? Because some people may feel emotional about it, and some people may feel proud of the things that they've done, and they feel like you know I did what I needed to do. Now I can relax. I can rest.
Definitely, that would be a good one. Well, who knows? You should try to get him on your show.
No,
That,
definitely,
that would be
absolutely.
that would be really fascinating. Americans know who, even if you are not Jamaican, you know who he is. Though the media talks about him when he was in the Olympics. Everybody knows about knows about Usain Bolt. Really, really fascinating person for sure. Well, um, you asked all the questions. I always like to say, if you can ask me only one question to make me sweat, to see if I'm worth my salt. Well, you asked it. You asked a magnificent question.
Hmm.
Um, and since you asked such a magnificent question, I was wondering, do you want to sing for us a little bit to walk us out of here? Can you sing the Jamaican national anthem with your beautiful patois?
Oh man, I mean, I'm really not the best singer. I'm not even
Okay,
gonna lie to
okay.
you.
Oh, well you can lie. I allow lying on my show. You just have to
Nah,
be nice about
nah. I'm really
it.
no. I really can't. Like, I can't.
Okay, cool. Well, one of the other Jamaican, the other Jamaican sung it on my podcast a long time ago. That's how I know. That's how I know it is a beautiful anthem. Anyway. So okay, well this was a fun one, guys. Really fat. A lot of great material to think about. A lot of food for thought. So if someone wants to get in touch with you personally, how do they go about doing that?
Okay, so you guys can follow me on Instagram at Sprint Specialist with two underscores after. My podcast page is at the Millennial View underscore. That's on Instagram as well. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you can.
And what about you? Well, I usually like to put the YouTube link. So you're also
Oh
on
yes.
YouTube, right?
So yes, so my YouTube, it's the Millennial View podcast.
Cool. Okay, excellent. Very good. Well, Sprint, I wish you very good health. I wish the world very good health to all of our listeners from around the world. Don't forget, everybody, 1240-681-9869. 1240-681-9869. Aaron's Opinion 6 at gmail.com. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, comment below on YouTube, become a patron if you want from my Patreon page. And thanks so much, everybody. First snow of the year. I guess we're fully into winter, and that was another magnificent episode of Aaron's Opinion podcast, where we definitely spoke about issues all over the world, certainly in the blindness community, but issues about society. So I enjoyed that one as always. That was a great one. All right, everybody, take care of yourselves, and from us at Aaron's Opinion, keep podcasting, And as I like to say on this show, help one person today, help a million people tomorrow.